Baldr was the son of mighty Odin, ruler of the Norse gods, and the sorceress goddess Frigg. He was renowned for his kindness and generosity and the joy with which he lived his life and spread to those around him. It was a shock then, and a concern to all, when Baldr suddenly began experiencing ominous dreams, predicting that a mystery misfortune would befall him. Father Odin, at the behest of the other gods and goddesses who loved Baldr so, immediately rode to the underworld to consult a dead seeress who was known to be wise in these matters. As he often did, Odin had disguised himself for this journey, and so upon entering the underworld, he was not recognized by those that dwelt within. To his surprise, however, he did not find the cold and dark underworld that he knew, but instead he found the halls arrayed in splendor, as if prepared for a great feast. Quickly locating the seeress, Odin questioned her as to the reason for the strange appearance of this usually evil place. She told him that the hall was being prepared for the arrival of a special guest of honor, none other than Baldr himself. She began crowing happily about Baldr meeting his doom before suddenly realizing the identity of the man before her, but not before she had revealed the fate of Baldr. Unfortunately, despite the knowledge slipping from her unwittingly, the words she spoke would still come to pass. Rushing home, a distraught Odin told the other gods what he had learnt. Frigg, the mother of Baldr, was overcome with grief and refused to accept the fate of her son. She traveled endlessly and tirelessly, visiting every entity in the cosmos, living or non-living, and obtained oaths from each of them to not harm Baldr. With the oaths secured, Odin and Frigg began to feel a little more secure, and a blossom of hope grew that they may be able to save their son after all. Indeed, it became almost a sport amongst the Norse pantheon, as they took it in turns to throw sticks, rocks, and anything else they could find at Baldr, laughing joyfully as each item simply bounced off him, leaving him unharmed. Of course, mischief will always find a way, and as so often in Norse mythology, its source was once again the trickster god Loki. In disguise, he visited Frigg and asked her, "Did all the things swear oaths to spare Baldr from harm?" "Oh yes," she replied, "everything except the mistletoe. But mistletoe is so small and innocent a thing that I didn't see a need to ask for an oath. What harm could it do Baldr?" Immediately upon learning this, Loki departed and located some mistletoe, carving it into the shape of a small spear. Returning to the party where the sport of throwing things at Baldr was continuing, Loki approached the blind god Hoder, who sat quietly by and whispered mischievously, "You must feel quite left out, having to sit back here, unable to join in with the game." The blind god simply nodded. "Here, take this," Loki spoke softly, handing him the mistletoe. "I will point your hand in the direction Baldr stands, and you throw this branch." Happily and blissfully unaware, Hoder threw the branch and it struck Baldr, piercing him immediately, and he dropped dead on the spot. No one moved as the world fell silent in anguish and fear. Their game abruptly halted in the most dramatic of fashions. The gods knew that the death of Baldr was the first sign of Ragnarok, the end of all things. Composing herself eventually, Frigg was still not ready to give up on her son, and she asked desperately for any god brave and loyal enough to journey to the land of the dead and offer the death goddess Hel a ransom for Baldr's release. Another son of Odin, Hermod, offered to undertake the mission, and he set off. As he began his perilous journey, the remaining gods and goddesses arranged a lavish funeral for their fallen comrade. Baldr's ship was turned into a pyre befitting a great king. When the time came to launch the ship to sea, however, the gods were unable to move it from its position stuck in the sand. They summoned the strongest creature in the cosmos, a giantess named Hyrrokin, who was finally able to push the ship with a force that shook the whole land. As his body was placed on the ship, Baldr's wife Nanna was overcome with such grief that she also died and was placed on the ship with her husband. The fire was set, and Thor hallowed the flames by holding his hammer over them. Members of all races from across the 9 worlds had come to see off the great and beloved Baldr. Gods, elves, dwarfs, valkyries, and many others. Together they stood and mourned as the burning ship slipped slowly out of view and into the horizon. Meanwhile, the brave Hermod reached the underworld, and upon reaching the river Gjoll, he was stopped by the giantess who guards the bridge, Modgud. She demanded his name and purpose, surprised to see a member of the living down here. He told her the tale of his mission, and she allowed him to pass. Hermod quickly located the goddess Hel, sat upon her throne with Baldr, pale and downcast, sitting in the seat of honor next to her. Hermod pleaded for Hel to release Baldr back to the land of the living, telling her of the great sorrow that all living things, and especially the gods, felt for his absence. Hel spoke firmly, informing Hermod that if what he says is true, everything in the cosmos should weep for Baldr. If that happens, she would release him back to the land of the living. But if even one should refuse, he would remain with her. Hermod returned to Asgard and informed the gods of the offer. Messengers were sent to all corners of existence with the request, and indeed, beloved as he was by all, each and every being wept for his loss. All except one. A single giantess named Tok. Tok, who of course was Loki in disguise. And so the deal was complete, and Baldr's fate was sealed. He was to remain in the underworld and would never again walk amongst the living. A great tale from Norse mythology. The death of Baldr was the first step on the road to Ragnarok and the downfall of the Norse gods. It was also the start of the end for the trickster god Loki, who had so often hindered the gods, despite sometimes also helping them.